talking about the TV movie Gargoyles. This one is directed by Bill Norton. Bill Norton's actually one of my favourite TV directors. He directed about 10 episodes of Tour of Duty, the Vietnam TV show. It's one of my favourite series of all time. He also did a few episodes of Angel, did an episode of Buffy, along with a whole host of other TV credits. But here he's doing a TV movie, Gargoyles. This one stars Scott Glenn, who I think out of all the cast is going to be maybe the person that people recognise today. Although it actually stars, its official star in this one is Kamel Wilde and Jennifer Salt. So the story is fairly slight, if we're being honest. It ultimately focuses on this father-daughter combo. The father is a published author, and he meets his daughter off a plane, and they are going to go and stop off at this guy who lives in the desert who claims he's got some type of discovery. And of course they're originally thinking it's going to be some kind of time, a waste of time, but it turns out to be a skeleton of some type of bipedal creature. Now obviously by the title we know it's a gargoyle, and they initially kind of write it off as a hoax, but the shack where the skeleton is actually attacked by, well, gargoyles, and the guy who found the skeleton is killed. And now our father-daughter combo are being pursued by these gargoyles as the father has kind of taken the skull because the gargoyles want to retrieve it. In the midst of all that, the local police get involved. We have this kind of small kind of dirt bike gang that kind of gets involved, led by Scott Glenn. And ultimately, from the prologue at the beginning of the narration, we're told that the gargoyles will pop up every few hundred years and ultimately try and take over humanity. So that's kind of what they're ultimately doing now. They've just kind of been reborn. So what do we think about Gargoyles? I actually originally saw this movie on TV years and years ago. Then a little while later than that, I managed to pick it up on DVD. And it's actually quite a fun B-movie horror film, considering it's obviously 1972, made-for-TV budget. So for me, what works? Okay, so unlike a lot of the 70s movies, where they you don't really see much maybe until the very end, you actually see quite a lot of our gargoyles in this film. And I've got to say, I actually quite like the makeup effects here. I think the makeup effects here are very strong. Now, yes, by today's standards, obviously, you can point to the bodysuits as looking a little bit crappy. But I've got to say, I thought the facial makeup was really strong and still holds up today. And what I like about it is, well, we have different types of gargoyles. They don't all look the same. Our main one looks typically devil-like. And he's got it's fantastic looking makeup. But there's ones that are more, almost look like chameleons, and there's one that have like beaks and stuff like that. So there's all these different types, and as the film progresses, we learn a little bit more about them, and we learn a little bit about their society ultimately, and their hierarchy, and their even differing opinions within this this gargoyle community. And the interesting thing here is that the gargoyles are painted. I mean, the intro suggests that they're pure evil, but when the movie actually plays out, I don't know if this was intentional, to be honest, but they're actually a little bit more nuanced, because they don't necessarily seem straight evil. They just seem more of a species that wants to survive and ultimately thrive. And yeah, they do, so they want to ultimately take over the planet. But in other cases, these that are main gargoyle is taking an interest in the daughter as there's sort of learning about humans and stuff like that. So there's the movie, intentionally or not, actually gives these gargoyles some nuance and some layers. So you feel like there is divisions within the society, and you can look at they're more advanced than just the animals that they maybe we lead to believe at the beginning of the movie. And I actually think the cast here, it's a little bit cheesy sometimes. The landlady of this hotel is a little bit over the top, for example. But the main cast here, I think, do a decent enough job. And the plot is very slight. I mean, it's a very short running time. It only runs around 74 minutes, I believe. So it's a very concise film. The ending is super abrupt. It just kind of goes, bam, we're ending. And that's it. And yeah, I mean, some of the effects, like the wings, for example, look a little bit small. But, you know, we're talking a 1972 TV budget, so you had to take this into effect. So I actually think it's effective for the time and the kind of the budget that would have been afforded for that. So I actually can kind of forgive some of the effects. I mean, there are things here like the gargoyles can kind of speak English. After one of them even admits that they've only been alive for a few days. So they can, you know, how are they speaking English, for example. There is a few kind of inconsistencies here and there, and some of the kind of you know, the effects and stuff look a little bit kind of wobbly at times, and some of the characters as well are a little bit kind of cartoonish, as I've mentioned. The kind of the landlady, but it's not just her. But overall, because it's such a short running time. And I think we're not looking at purely evil, you know, kind of antagonists here. We're looking at ones that may be almost sympathetic in certain aspects. Because I mean, when we have these our conflicts, we have humans with guns and stuff, which just seem to be mowing down the gargoyles. And the gargoyles really are unarmed and having to kind of rely on hand-to-hand combat. So it does actually give you some empathy, because you ultimately feel the gargoyles are kind of unmatched. One thing I didn't like here, and I was reading this, was that this is a choice made by the director. Whenever you see the gargoyles run, they slow the film down to kind of make it, so they're running in slow motion to try and make them look more unnatural. But the problem is the effect where you have the gargoyles and humans on screen at the same time, because sometimes it's slow mode, so the humans are running slow mode as well, and sometimes they're obviously, when the focus is on the humans, they're running at the kind of obviously regular pace. So it's inconsistent, and I feel, looking at it today, that's one effect that I don't think was a good idea. It just looks like slow-mo. It doesn't make them look like they're running unnaturally. It makes it look like it's just slow-mo. And I remember watching, even when I was like quite young and saw this on TV, and that effect kind of bothered me then, and I still don't think it's a great idea now. But this is overall a fun B-movie creature feature with some really kind of quite cool antagonists. Now, I remember reading somewhere, and this, my current research, I can't find where I was reading this, but this was originally meant to be a pilot for a TV show, but I'm not sure if that's true, because I can't find the reference to that now, but I just remember reading it years ago. But overall, I would say this is worth a watch. I would give it a 6 out of 10. If you're a B-movie fan, a creature feature fan, it's worth tracking a copy down if you don't mind kind of like, you know, older movies at this point. So 6 out of 10, have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.